Hello, guys. Welcome to Warwick Podcast Society. I'm Hemansh Kanwal, and in today's episode, we are thrilled to bring to you a veteran from the finance industry, Mr. Dan Weston, the CEO of BRI Wealth Management. He has over a decade of experience in wealth management, and we are very excited to bring to you insights from his journey and his expertise. So we're really lucky to have you, Dan. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
Excellent. So to begin with, it's very interesting how you started with your foray into the finance industry. Could you tell us about your early days and how they shaped your career to where it is now?
Yeah, sure. I never really understood what wealth management was, as most youngsters don't. And then I was doing my A-levels in 2011, and I was planning on going to university to do international relations, but I wanted a gap year. I wanted to go and sort of travel the world. Needed some pocket money, so my father owns BRI Wealth Management, and he sort of said, why don't you come and work here for 3 months and earn some pocket money, and then you can go travelling and go to university. And then after about a month or so of working at BRI, I thought, this is quite interesting, actually. I quite like the stock market. And this was around the time of the European debt crisis, which was sort of a big thing in August, September 2011. So markets were moving all over the place. And I thought I really quite liked it. And then my boss at the time, a chap called Mark, said, why don't you stay on? And that was a big decision for me to make because, of course, all of my peers and friends were going to university. I really wanted to travel around the world, but I really wanted to get ahead in life as well and forge a career for myself. And I thought wealth management, really enjoying that, it's a good thing to do. So I joined BRI sort of full time. I think it was the 1st of January 2012. And then really for probably 5 years up until I started the MBA in September 2017, very much focused on the investment side of the world, so managing money for clients, coming up with asset allocations, picking equities, picking funds, and that was great. Really enjoyed that. But then I got to a juncture really in about 2016 where I recognised that as much as I enjoy the investing side of the world, and I still do, I wanted to run businesses in the future, and I didn't have the skill set to do that. I was very good at investing, but didn't know anything about marketing or operations management or whatever it was. So decided to do the MBA, so joined here in September 2017, full-time for a year, which was great. I then rejoined BRI back in 2018, carried on with the investment side of things for a few years, moving up to the position of Chief Investment Officer. And then I took over as chief executive nearly 3 years ago, which is a bit scary where the time goes. So it's been an interesting career thus far, but really very excited about what the future's got to hold. Actually, we're at a really exciting point for the business, and so feel very enthused and energized about it.
That's excellent. I mean, to take over as the chief executive, that too with this quick career progression that you've seen, I'd really love to understand how the MBA from Warwick played a role in helping you develop the breadth of skills that you were looking for, like you mentioned, operations, marketing, as well as leadership overall. What sort of takeaways did you take from your MBA at Warwick?
I think the main thing is that it gets you thinking, and it opens your mind and it broadens your horizons to a lot of skills that maybe one doesn't have, or ways of thinking that you're not accustomed to. And especially for me, because I hadn't done an undergrad degree, I'd gone straight into BRI from when I was 18. And so the whole thing was just highly beneficial, learning more about marketing or operations management and supply chains, accounting and finance, whilst that was a bit dull because I knew about it, there were still some interesting bits. The strategy side of things, the Leadership Plus was fantastic. And I think the things that I really enjoyed most about my time at Warwick was the practical side of things. So doing helping out a business under the Leadership Plus module. We were helping out an AI chatbot company. I mean, this was in 2018 before none of us knew what AI was. So that was quite interesting. Or working on my dissertation, which was sort of very much a practical dissertation. It was a sort of a business plan for BRI in essence. So it was a fantastic experience, and I think for me also, having not gone to university the first time round, being able to meet so many different and interesting people from completely different backgrounds, from completely different cultures, was just fantastic. And I'll always look back very fondly on my time at Warwick.
Certainly, certainly. And just touching up more on your early start, this sort of a head start into the wealth management industry. How do you see markets having evolved over time? Because you definitely have seen different phases of government, different monetary policies, different fiscal policies being conducted in UK. What is your view, bird's eye view of the UK markets right now?
Oh, you said we've only got half an hour to talk about stuff a month, so we might struggle. But UK, the world and markets have changed a lot over the last 10 years. There are a number of structural forces at play within stock markets, sort of the move from active investing towards passive investing, the move away from sort of maybe more diversified portfolios to being more US-centric. A lot of investors are more US-centric now. But as we sort of sit here today, the UK stock market's in a relatively tricky position. There's lots of good, very international companies that are listed on the UK stock market, but because valuations have been on the stock market have been very cheap for a number of years, really since the Brexit vote in 2016, and then add in all of the political shenanigans and add in COVID and add in everything else, it's just been an area people haven't wanted to invest in. And what that's meant is that a lot of the really fantastic UK companies that were on the stock market have been taken private, either by private equity buyers or trade buyers. And so it's leading to, I would argue, poorer quality companies being on the stock market. And so there is a concern over the longer term that unless the government can make the UK an attractive place to do business, an attractive place to list your business, then the UK market could be in a bit of a long-term structural downward cycle. However, the government is making right noises around this, which is pleasing. And, we may touch on it later, but the ultimate determinant of long-term returns in the stock market, which is what we're all focused on, is the price you pay for an asset. And UK assets are very cheap at the moment. They're cheap compared to other international stock markets, whether that's the US or Europe or other places, and they're cheap relative to history as well. And so we're still quite positive on the UK market, but we recognise the structural and cyclical headwinds that have been at play over the last few years, but we think maybe some of those are starting to abate, which is good.
Oh, really? Wow, okay. I feel one of the another challenge UK markets face in these times is also the lack of quality companies listing in the market as well. I believe UK has seen about 10 odd fresh IPOs, if I'm not mistaken, in 2024 thus far, or 2020 last year.
Yeah, very few. It probably is around 10, yeah.
Yeah, so with that, plus also the noises that they were making with the government, you have an AI plan that rolled out. You have a lot of talks about AI fintech. How do you see these trends playing out, and how are companies in UK capitalizing on it?
On the AI sort of thing, it's a difficult one. I mean, AI has really shot onto the scene since October, November 2022 with ChatGPT, and it is moving so quickly. And you've seen that America has just dominated this space from a global perspective. Interestingly, though, with the DeepSeek announcement a month ago, maybe China's sort of doing a little bit better at this. But it doesn't seem like the UK has got a terribly coherent and well thought out strategy for AI. And I think AI is going to change the way, it's going to change all of our lives. It's going to change the way we all do business going forward. But it feels for me, from a national perspective, we maybe don't have a strategy and a sort of a vision of where we want to get to with AI. I think also, just looking at it from a sort of a smaller business perspective, I think it can be tricky to know sort of where to start with AI. I mean, there's lots of good tools out there, and I use ChatGPT quite a lot, or Microsoft Copilot, sort of relatively basic things. And it does save me a lot of time, but I think smaller businesses maybe don't have the confidence, the awareness, or the time to be sort of thinking about these tools that ultimately can enhance productivity by quite some way.
Right. Are these tools used a lot, especially at the entry level or analyst level roles in organizations such as yours?
I think increasingly so. I mean, I was looking at a video on LinkedIn a couple of nights ago. Someone just sort of creating a discounted cash flow model on ChatGPT. Yeah. I think when I used to do that, it used to take me bloody hours, and it was usually wrong as well. And ChatGPT can do it in 10 seconds for me, so that's quite good. So yeah, it's very good for that sort of more basic and mundane task, and it saves me a lot of time. But it's trying to get that adoption across, from a BRI perspective, across the organisation, and on a similar vein across smaller companies. That's the tricky part, I think.
Interesting. To segue in from the BRI perspective to now the student perspective, because a lot of aspiring finance professionals at WBS think a lot about how AI is going to be replacing a lot of jobs that we are potentially seeking out. What would be your advice to aspiring finance professionals, how they can sort of develop new skills that can complement the use of AI and still be relevant in the finance sector today?
Yeah, it's a very hot topic, and it's an interesting one. Large swathes of the economy and potentially of the broad financial services industry are being and will be disrupted by artificial intelligence. However, I think for a lot of roles, you cannot replace a human. And actually what you're going to see is AI just enhancing that employee and making them able to deal with more work. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be too much of a challenge if you're in the right part of the financial services industry. And that's how we're using AI. I mean, we're using it, when we go and meet clients, we have to sort of take notes of what's gone on in the meeting and sort of write those up and make sure the files are all correct and accurate. Now we've got sort of an AI automated assistant that joins the online meeting with us, and it transcribes the notes, and it does really well. So from our perspective now, it means, the financial planners and advisors I've got, they're not spending 2 hours when they come back from the meeting writing up notes. So they've suddenly got 2 hours a day back, let's say, or maybe a bit less than that. So suddenly they can deal with more clients. Before they might be only able to deal with 100 clients, say. Now they might be able to deal with 110 or 120 a year. So it will disrupt certain sort of lower parts of the market, I think, more mundane and basic roles. But I think overall it's just going to enhance efficiency and productivity and also capacity. So I think for sort of younger people getting into the area and the space, I think what I would say is make sure you've got, as best you can, a solid grasp and understanding of the AI and tech landscape and how that can improve you when you're an employee and also improve outcomes for your employer. So there's a very long and verbose answer. There's definitely some threats, but I think there's a lot of opportunities as well for people entering the workforce with AI.
Definitely. I think, in fact, even business schools are now recognizing, the importance of AI, and we've just seen more and more AI-specific modules and AI-focused modules being brought in. Yeah. So I think that's a move in the right direction. I also sense that soft skills are going to take increasing precedence for junior level roles. Like you said, there's going to be more time for them to face up to clients and seek out. So I think that's. I think it won't necessarily replace, but rather change the nature of work. Would that be correct?
I think so. I was having this conversation with somebody last night actually about soft skills. A lot of businesses, and I think it is true in certain aspects of financial services, but it's about relationships and it's about trust. Yes, you could probably get an AI bot to provide financial advice to a client and create a portfolio and tell you need to put money into your ISA and you need to do this, that and the other. But it comes down to trust and having those connections. If you've got, 500,000, 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, whatever it is, we still find that people value that face-to-face interaction and that trust, that individual trust. And I think that's the area of the market where AI just isn't going to take over. business is about relationships, and I think that is a fundamental skill that I do think younger people maybe are lacking compared to older generations. But it's so vital for business. It's that relationship building, that networking, and being able to generate and form connections with people.
Certainly. I think it's even more so important in a business like wealth management, wherein you're dealing with the life savings of families and individuals themselves. And
it's we are stewards of people's capital. They've worked hard, all of their life. They're still working, converting sort of income into capital. So the capital, once they get to retirement, can provide them with an income. It's a big and important task, and there has to be that element and of trust within the relationship. And we're very fortunate at BRI that we work with clients for decades and sort of spanning multi-generations of the family, and that's only possible because of the mutual trust we've got.
That is so important. Yeah, definitely. While we are speaking of wealth management, there is a lot of buzz around certain careers in finance, such as investment banking or even consulting for that matter. How would you sort of stake up wealth management as a career against investment banking, consulting, or private equity, the many sort of routes? How should a postgraduate student at this juncture decide which sort of field is best suited for them?
I mean, I was saying earlier, I come back to Warwick Business School quite a bit, and I think most recently speaking to the Finance Society. And the amount of people who come up to you after and say, yeah, great, lovely talk or whatever, I really want to be an investment banker or get into private equity. And I don't sort of think people fully understand. They think it sort of sounds good and they know there's a lot of money there, but maybe they don't understand what specifically those things are. But specifically with wealth management, I think it's a complete lack of awareness about the wealth management sector and the role it plays in society and the role it can play for people. And I think that's the key thing, is that we need to raise awareness of the wealth management sector as a really great place to build a career. There is at the moment £3.5 trillion of wealth that is managed by wealth managers, I believe. That's forecast to grow at a 3% annual rate over the coming years. There is a lot of intergenerational wealth transfer that's going to take place over the next 20 years. I think there's 5,000 firms, wealth management firms in the UK, but most of them are quite small. I think the average age of a financial advisor in the UK is 58, so quite old. It is a great career to be getting into, and you really can make a difference to people's lives. But it's the awareness is poor. People see and hear private equity or consulting, and they know it's big bucks. But they don't give any consideration to wealth management. So it's a tricky one to solve. But I would say wealth management is a great industry to get into, and for someone who is driven and capable, there's a lot of opportunity in the sector.
Definitely. At £3.5 trillion, that's a big number. Is that only for UK?
That's only for UK.
Wow.
I mean, the biggest wealth manager in the UK looks after about £190 billion.
Oh.
So it's big. I mean, BRI, we look after 650 million, but we're growing quite quickly. We'll never be the biggest, nor do we want to be. But it's an absolutely huge space.
But do you see it being a fragmented market? 190 billion being the biggest player out of a $3.5 trillion market, £3.5 trillion market.
Yeah, it's huge. It's hugely fragmented. So I think there's over 5,000 firms in the market at the moment.
Okay.
And I think there's only 50. There's only 50 firms that I think have more than 11 financial planners in them. That might be independent firms, I'm not entirely sure.
Right.
But it's highly fragmented. And so what you've seen over the last few years is private equity has recognised that wealth management's a really good sector to be in for a whole host of reasons, and is consolidating all of these smaller businesses. So it's quite often you will see businesses of sort of just one or two financial planners in, and they tend to now be of a certain age. And so a lot of them are thinking of their retirement and selling out, and that is sort of a slight tangent, but is one of the legs of BRI's strategy has been the inorganic growth and the acquisition of businesses, typically financial planners that are looking to retire, and we will take on their clients and be a good home for their clients in the future. So yeah, it's a great space to be in from a consolidation perspective as well.
Right. Wow. So a wave of change also heading towards the wealth management space, is that right?
Yeah, it is lots of change, and it's a pretty dynamic industry, and it's it's fun to be a part of.
Definitely. How would you suggest a student prepare for the wealth management industry in terms of certifications, courses, anything that can give them an edge over many of the candidates who aspire to be finance professionals?
I know it's tricky when you're a student sort of trying to get in, with work experience or an internship or whatever it is with firms, but I would try and get into a wealth management firm, even if it's just for a few days or a week, and really try and understand what they're doing, because again, it's that education piece that I don't think people understand what wealth management is. So I think I'd try and get some experience if you can, even if it's only for a few days or a week. Then there are sort of different exam pathways you can go down. There's the Chartered Insurance Institute, which has got lots of different exams that sort of put you on the path to being a financial planner or a chartered financial planner. And then there's also the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investments, CISI. And again, you can do exams via that route. I think from my perspective, when we're looking to hire or when I'm giving people advice, it's taking that initiative, even when maybe you're studying for your MBA or undergrad, whatever it is, and maybe doing a few of those more basic exams to start with, because then when I'm having a chat with that person who's coming in for a job and I've got a lot of CVs on my desk, like, okay, they've done a few exams, they've sort of got off their arse, for want of a better expression, shown some interest and shown some initiative, and have got cracking with the exams. So probably looking at those exam pathways as well, I would suggest.
Well, that's something to take note, listeners. And that was the wrap on this podcast. Thank you so much, Dan, for sharing insights into the wealth management industry and the markets overall. It was a pleasure speaking to you today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And listeners, stay tuned to Warwick Podcast Society for more. Thank you.